You remember a world that no longer exists, and you're young enough to be building your future in the one that replaced it. If you were born between 1976 and 1985, pay close attention, because what I'm about to tell you isn't just interesting, it's going to change how you see yourself. Let me paint a picture. You blew into a Nintendo cartridge to make it work. You memorized your best friend's phone number. You made plans for Friday on Monday. No group chat, no backup plan, and you showed up. Then, almost overnight, everything changed. You went from cassette tapes to Spotify, from waiting for your favorite show to streaming anything, anytime, from calling someone's landline and chatting with their parents first to having every human you've ever known available in your pocket 24/7. And here's the part that stops most people cold. That entire transformation happened inside your childhood. You didn't read about it in a history book, you lived it. During the exact years your brain was still being built. And that's where science comes in, because neuroscience has finally caught up to what you've always felt. In 2004, researcher Nitin Gogte at the National Institutes of Health discovered that the prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for decision-making and adapting to change, doesn't fully develop until around age 25. Think about what that means for you. Your brain was still wiring itself during the biggest technological revolution in human history, not as a passive observer, as an active participant. Developmental psychologist Sarah Jane Blakemore at University College London calls adolescence a second window of opportunity, a period where the brain is extraordinarily plastic, reshaping itself based on its environment. Your environment was two completely different worlds, simultaneously. And psychologist Ellen Bialystock found that managing two competing cognitive systems builds what she calls enhanced cognitive flexibility. In other words, your brain didn't just adapt to the digital age, it became bilingual in it. You speak analog, you speak digital, fluently. Most people only speak one. But there's something else researchers found, something no one talks about. You were the last generation whose embarrassing moments faded. No screenshots, no archives, no receipts following you into your 30s and 40s. You made mistakes, you grew, and the evidence dissolved. Konstantin Sedikates at the University of Southampton proved that nostalgia isn't just emotion, it causally strengthens your sense of who you are over time. Your brain was allowed to do what brains do naturally. Keep what matters, release the rest. That's not sentimentality, that's a cognitive advantage.
But I'm not going to pretend your generation had it easy. Because right when you finally found your footing as an adult, the floor fell out. The 2008 financial crisis didn't just hit your bank account, it hit you during the exact developmental window when certainty is supposed to form. When you're supposed to believe the world is stable enough to build a life in. Economist Paola Giuliano's research through the National Bureau of Economic Research found that experiencing a recession during your formative years rewires your relationship with money and risk permanently. Even when things recovered, the question running in the background never fully went quiet. What if it all falls apart again? That's not anxiety. Sociologist Jalon Mortimer calls it pragmatic resilience. You don't just spend money, you think before you spend. You don't just trust systems, you verify. That's not a flaw, that's wisdom the hard way. So here's the tension you carry. You're too old for TikTok, too young for Facebook to feel like home. You carry the independence of Gen X and the optimism of early millennials. You're skeptical and hopeful, deeply analog and fully digital. And if you've ever felt like you don't quite belong anywhere, there's a reason. Psychologist Erik Erikson mapped the exact developmental stage you're in right now, your 40s to 50s. He called it generativity versus stagnation. The central question isn't who you are anymore, it's what you leave behind. And holding contradictions, Erikson didn't see that as confusion. He saw it as maturity. But here's the part I need you to sit with, the uncomfortable part. Sometimes I don't fit anywhere stops being an observation and starts being a hiding place. Adaptability is your superpower, but if you're shape-shifting for every room you walk into, at some point you have to ask, which shape is actually mine? Are you adapting or are you avoiding? That's the question only you can answer. Here's what I know for certain. You could survive a digital blackout tomorrow, and you could build a startup next week. You can write a handwritten letter and troubleshoot someone's Wi-Fi in the same afternoon. You remember what it felt like to be genuinely unreachable, and you know exactly what it costs to always be available. That's not confusion, that's range. You didn't fall between two generations. You were forged by both. So if someone ever told you that you don't quite fit, they weren't insulting you. They were just describing something they didn't have a word for yet. The word is Zennial, and it was never a limitation. It was always the advantage. Drop one thing in the comments that only a Zennial would understand, and subscribe because the next video goes even deeper into the psychology of people who were never supposed to exist.